place real? That depends. If real is what you can feel, smell, taste, and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain. Pikachu, I have in my hand 2 pills. You take the blue pill, and the story ends now. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the Diglett hole goes. But be warned, dive too deep, and you may never return.
Infinite Investment Game, and I was on his podcast, I think maybe a few months ago. But Chris, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be on.
Yeah. The reason why I wanted you on is I've seen many YouTube content creators, and a lot of it seems to be based on the hype model, and you actually look at it from a really rational point of view. So that's why I wanted you on. So
yeah, part of it is because I read a lot of books, and not all of them, but a lot of them have to do with like economics and finance. And one of the books there were a lot of books, but one of the books I was reading, I kind of mentioned before when we were talking the last time we had a discussion, was Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. And it basically talks about 3 different time periods and 3 different situations. 2 had to do with stock market, and the other one had to do with the tulip bowl crisis. And whether it's tulip bowls, whether it's stocks, there's like similar patterns that people kind of get, almost like this madness in a sense, where bubbles form, and then the bubble pops and the people lose a lot of money. And it went through the different phases of the book. Is very boring, but it's very like helpful. And it goes through all of the issues and patterns that go on. It's not like you can necessarily like time the market, but you kind of know there's like cycles in a sense. And I read a lot of books that have to do with like cycles. And I think sports cars is one of them. And people who have been experienced in sports cars, for example, and just antiques and collectibles pretty much have the same thing. They see the same thing. Gary Vee even talked about it. Like there's like cycles, and then eventually it's going to die down, and then things will come back again. But so it makes sense. It basically makes sense if you understand what cycle you're in and like what phase you're in, you kind of understand what's going on and what to do. And then you're less likely to avoid the hype machine and the hype train in a sense.
Very good point. So how would you describe the sports card mania that we saw, from 2020, 2021, compared to other manias that you read about and you've studied?
One thing that makes this a little weird is now we have social media. So now like you can get the pump not just from like newspaper and articles, but obviously there's the news, but also you're gonna have on Instagram, it's like nonstop, and you can almost get yourself even more so in a bubble. And then also it allows more people to come in a sense. I would say it's similar. I mean, the other thing is I'm a graduate student at Yale, and I work in I guess it's a neuroeconomics lab. It's a neuroscience lab that does human decision making. But maybe 2 of my projects may be neuroeconomic involved. And some things that I've found is there's like this psychology of investing, and I've showed it before in some of my videos, where you have smart money, institutional investor cycle, and things are kind of steadily going up, and then you have the bear trap in a sense, where things go down for a short period of time. That happened, let's say in August 2020, September 2020, and the bottom was like Octoberish 2020, where there are a few people that were, I don't know, I guess complaining about the sports card market. It went down because Giannis PSA 10 cards, for example, were going almost $7,000 for his base cards, which was like insane. When literally, like, you could have easily got him $700, $800. I mean, literally a month ago, a month before, a couple months before. And it's just that swing, and then it went crazy again, and that's really the form of the actual bubble, I think. There was bubble already forming, but that was like the first one was a bear trap, and then around close to end of December, that's when things really took off and went crazy. And then you have media attention, and that hypes it up. You have celebrities coming in, and then you have that situation where it peaked around February or March, and then there's like a sharp decline, and then it peaks up again, but it's not as high as before. Like, people think, oh, it's gonna reach its old time high, or it's gonna surpass it. And it doesn't. And then it starts going down, and then you have series of going up and then going down more, and then going up some more, and then going down more, even more, and then going up a little bit, and then going down even more. And we're in that phase now. Like, I guess it normally takes a year or two on average, but I mean, not all the situations are the same, but a lot of times it levels out that way. And generally, most of the stuff goes, I don't know, it's a rough estimate, but at least like around 97% of the stuff goes back to before the mania to begin with. And technically, the mania kind of started in the end of 2019. So, most stuff may end up going back to prices of summer 2019, where there be few other 3%, maybe 1%, maybe a little bit less than 1%. It may level off to be higher than the 2019 prices. But one of the issues is a lot of people are going to be holding things for the long term, but they don't think about, if you looked at the sports card market at its entirety, or even like after 94, I mean, there's a lot of stagnation where most cards aren't really going up at all. They're pretty much stagnant, or they're hovering around a same price threshold. And I think that's possible for most cards. And also, I think a lot of people who are investing in cards, it's different if you're flipping, it's different if you're collecting, even though we're still in the mania phase. If you're collecting, you don't really want to be paying all-time high, especially if you want to have a large collection. So it kind of makes sense to, wait. But I do still think the sports card market is going to continue to go down. There'll be a few things, because I think the real thing that's tried and true is vintage. And I mean, if you're getting Bill Russell rookie cards or whatever, especially, I mean, these are going to be very expensive, probably in tens of thousands of dollars. Those are going to be safer, but that doesn't mean they're not going to go down from what they are now. But I do think there's certain like vintage stuff, whatever, the Hank Aaron's, the Babe Ruths type stuff. Some of that stuff is still kind of hype, but that stuff is going to more so last. I would say it's different from every sport, but let's say you say basketball, I would say pre-1988. So I think 87 and below. Baseball, it may be different. It may be like 1980 and below. And then it'll be a few players and maybe specific cards for those few players. But I mean, there's certain things where people are now shocked about Michael Jordan PSA 10 cards going down, but there's 300 of them. And people say, oh, his 1986 Fleer PSA 10, there's only like 318. There's also 6 BGS 10s that have not showed up at all that I haven't seen yet. And the last time I think I've seen an article of one sold, maybe 2011 to 2013 for $100,000. So Yeah, so it's just one of those things where it's so many of them, and there's some people walking around, they have 10 of them. They have
Gulfstream
12.
has like what, 20 at least? It's something ridiculous.
Yeah,
Even
so
more.
and then some of those people, you know, when things are going up, they're gonna sell off a few of them and take the profit, even if it goes down, because some of these people who bought quite a few of them may have gotten in at $20,000, $40,000. So if it go, even if it drops to 100,000, you're still making a profit. So I do also think there's a gap between the people who got into the market around 2018 and 19 versus people who got in 2020, 2021, and 2022. Just because the price points are different. It's different if you bought like a 2003 Topps Chrome LeBron James PSA 10 at $1,000. Right? Because I don't know what it is now. I saw it went up to 8,500, but it probably went down a little bit now. So I think those are things that I don't know, still have a point, but it's just like if you, I'll be honest, unless the card pop is like 15 or less, I don't know if it's going to be much of an investment, especially if there's a lot more other kind of rookie cards in a sense, unless it's like the top tier rookie card.